Hi, this is Rabbi Ira Ebbin from Congregation Ohav Sholom, and I'm here with my friend Rabbi Howard Goldsmith from Temple Emmanuel. I did it right?
You change it every time. It's wonderful. However
Great.
you do it, it's great.
From your great temple in Westchester, and we are here for, once again, sacred text left to right, and sooner or later I'm going to get the intro down pat. It is the day before Purim. It is Tanit Esther, the day before Purim, and we are here to study a little bit about a piece of Talmud that discusses some of the practices on Purim, for in particular the Yiddish phrase "shikr is the ikr." Getting drunk is what it's all about. So let's Howie, why don't you take us to the Gemara in Megillah and Zayin Amud Bet?
Okay, wonderful. In the book of Esther, we find a commandment or a verse at the end of the book of Esther that says that the Jews from that day forth would make them days of feasting and gladness. And the rabbis look at this and say, what does this mean? How do we have feasting and gladness? And one of the ways, in Tractate Megillah 7b, it says, Rava said, a person is obligated to become intoxicated with wine on Purim until he is so intoxicated that he does not know how to distinguish between cursed is Haman and blessed is Mordechai. So the first pass on this seems to say, on Purim you're supposed to drink, and drink a lot. But right after this, right immediately following this in the tractate, we hear a story that's really a cautionary tale. The Gemara relates that Rabbah and Rab Zera prepared a Purim feast with each other, and they became intoxicated to the point that Rabbah arose and slaughtered Rabbi Zera. The next day, when he became sober and realized what he had done, Rabbah asked God for mercy and revived Rab Zera. The next year, Rabbah said to Rabbi Zera, let the master come and let us prepare the Purim feast with each other. And Rabbi Zera said to Rabbah, miracles do not happen each and every hour, and I do not want to undergo that experience again. I always like to think of this story as Halloween meets Purim. Not only do people get dressed up for both, but this is the bloody portion, the bloody tale from Purim, where somebody's head is chopped off and then he comes back to life again. Ira, please teach us a little bit about this fascinating piece of Talmud.
Yeah. So you still see me? I'm sorry. Did I lose you? You there?
No, you're back.
Yeah. Okay, great. So this is obviously there. We have the statement in the Talmud based on the story that one is supposed to celebrate. One is supposed to party on Purim. It's the happiest day on the Jewish calendar. And in fact, since the miracle took place through wine, where Esther invites Haman and Achashverosh to have a party with wine with her. So therefore, we celebrate with wine, and it's part of the whole big celebration. When the Talmud comes in and tells the story, the question is that what is it trying to get at? Is it trying to say, so you're supposed to be so inebriated that you can't tell the difference between blessing Haman and cursing Mordechai, but, does the story of Rabbi Zera and Rabbah, is it telling us that, don't go too far? Is there something that you should really take a step back and be careful? Definitely don't play with knives. And the commentaries actually say that they were debating the laws of shechita, of ritual slaughtering. And they were saying, no, this is the way to do it. No, this is the way to do it. And then Rabbi Zera said, let me show you. And he chopped his head off, right? So obviously it's a little scary, cute story. But the question is what's the lesson from that? The Code of Jewish Law opens up. It says, just like the Talmud began, one is obligated to be inebriated, and they can't tell the difference between blessing Mordechai and cursing Haman. However, the second opinion comes along and says, but there are those who say you're better off taking a nap. Take a little drink more than you normally do. You'll get a little tired. You take a little nap, and when you're sleeping, you can't tell the difference. So actually, the ultimate goal is to be in the state of, not the confusion, but the state where things are so unclear, so that you can't tell the difference between the good guy and the bad guy. And the question is, from this Talmud, is it, are they prescribing you should do it through alcohol, or you should do it through being asleep, and that'll cover you?
I mean, it seems a bit of an apologetic, in my opinion, for the Talmud, saying, well, no, really, you can just sleep. That's not what the Talmud's saying.
Why? No, meaning the Talmud doesn't say that. The point is that it doesn't retract the original statement. Meaning, if the story of Rabbi Zera was there to tell us, no, this is a terrible idea, So then they would say, and now we then don't do it. But they don't retract it. So now the question is how do you, and of course we still have to ask the question, what is the ultimate goal? Why should you be in that state where you're so inebriated or so unconscious that you can't tell the difference between good guys and bad guys?
Right. So I want to actually back up from the question a little bit of how much to drink, whether to drink, how much to drink. And I want to get instead to focus on not being able to tell the difference between cursed is Haman and blessed is Mordechai. Because I think that we, in determining how many pints of beer or how many shots of whiskey we're going to take, we might lose sight of that, because that's the ultimate goal. And the question for me is why? Why should we be confused about who's the good guy and who's the bad guy? So I think that first there is a touch of humility that comes from that state of not knowing, particularly in these fraught political times when different political factions are looking at one another as evil, as so completely wrong that it's not a meaningful discussion, but rather that they're evil. And when you can't tell the difference between Haman and Mordechai, you have to admit to yourself that maybe my position is not 100% correct. If we can get confused between somebody like Haman and Mordechai, it points out to us that when we get so entrenched in our positions, we can lose sight of a greater good, a greater goal. So that's the first thing that I learned from the commandment to get confused about who is who. The other thing is that it tells us, you know what, you can take a break from the battling. You can take a break from the fighting. You can take a break from all of the big, serious issues that we're facing today. And for one night, you can kick back and laugh and not take everything so seriously. Which is also, we live in serious times, but Jews have always lived in serious times. And so to have a night where we can forget who's on which side, and everybody can get together and have a drink and laugh a little bit.
And Republicans and Democrats can actually have a l'chaim together.
It would be nice.
It would never happen.
Let's not go crazy here. Reviving somebody who's been slaughtered by a shechita night is one thing, but Republicans and Democrats drinking together, not so much.
Everything you said is very nice and very good points. I would just say one step further, and that really it comes into the discussion of what the role of the Megillah is in general. You know, God is not mentioned in the Megillah and the entire time. His name is not mentioned. You could read the Megillah and feel that there is no role of God. And the rabbis often, in many places, wanted to convey that actually the Megillah the story of Esther is the most religious book around. Why? Because there is no God mentioned in the story, and yet we know that he's still there. Is that he's hidden his face, and yet nonetheless, we know even though we can't see him, there are no miracles, there's no mention of him, we know that he's still present. And that at the end of the day, we celebrate because we know that God will take care of us, even if we don't see him, even if it seems that we don't know who the good guys are and who the bad guys are. And that part of the euphoria that the rabbis mandated of being so inebriated, unconscious, not telling the difference between good guys and bad guys is that, at the end of the day, we put our hands and our fate in man. We don't know who's good. We don't know who's bad. The one thing we do know is that God's going to take care of it. Revach v'hatzala bali hudim mimakom acher. One way or another, Mordechai says at the end of chapter 4, the salvation for the Jewish people and success will finally come from another place. And who's that other place? That's from God. And we think we know what the plan is, and we think we know how to get to be successful, etc. But at the end, we submit ourselves to God and say, we don't know. I can't tell the difference between good and bad. It's all up to you.
And I of course would look at that a little bit differently, say that God plays a role in human affairs, but that humans have to take initiative too, and humans have to do their part. They have to partner with God, because without Esther and Mordechai playing the roles that they played, perhaps the will of God would not have been realized on earth. And
That's
absolutely right. It's not just God pulling the strings, it's also human beings doing their part to realize God's vision.
Right. It's the balance between what we call hishtadlut, which is human effort, and bitachon, which is faith, that God will take care of it. But Mordechai says to Esther, Mi yodea, who knows if this is the reason why you became the queen? I have no idea. we have to try this because we have no other choice. But one way or another, God's going to take care of this. We just have to do our effort and do our part, and eventually the salvation will come from God.
And before the salvation comes, we need a drink. And so we say l'chaim, not to the point where we're chopping off each other's heads, but we should have a l'chaim.
And safety always takes priority. Let's just remember a little caveat of that.
Of course.
Safety always takes priority. But there is, I think I like the idea that you said that, you know what, we got to have a little more fun. Jews can be a little bit grumpy and a little uptight. There has to be an opportunity, to, especially with everything we've been through and for all these millennia, and the fact that we're still here. It's the eighth wonder of the world. The Jewish nation remains Am Yisrael Chai, and so you got to say, why not l'chaim? And we celebrate life, because and it's one thing also to remember is that when we drink, we say l'chaim. People drink and they drown out their sorrows. We don't do that. We say l'chaim, and we recognize that life is good and that there's plenty of reason to be happy and to celebrate.
Well, I hope that your Purim celebration is a really happy one, and best wishes for great Purim to your
drunk right now. I'm drunk right now, actually. So.
Well, considering it's a fast day, you must have really started early.
I started before 5, yeah. So.
I love it. Okay, a very happy Purim.
Happy Purim.